Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Yarn Ambassador pod blog. Thank you very much for joining me in this third month of pod blogging. This month we are showcasing the work of an independent dyer called Helen, who dyes under the name of Viking Yarns. And in just a moment we're going to be taking a look at everything that she does and why I love her yarns. But first things first, some administrative stuff. We had a giveaway last month, and that was for a hobby wool kit of Knit Like a Moohoo Islander. I'll insert a photo of the prize here. I've done a random number generator, and I'm very pleased to announce that Harriet Naomi has won. I believe Harriet has a podcast as well, which I have been watching. So congratulations, Harriet. If you pop me a private message with your address, I will get that in the post to you as soon as possible. I hope you enjoy knitting them, and I can't wait to see what comes of your mittens. So this month's podcast is going to be a little bit different from the others. I don't have a recorded interview with Helen for several reasons. Firstly, Helen is based in Appledore, which is down in Devon, and which is a long way from where I am in Oxford, and even further from where I sometimes am, which is in Lancashire. The other reason is that not everybody necessarily wants to have their face all over YouTube. Some of us do, some of us don't, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast. So this podcast is really to give a voice to some of those more unknown independent dyers, the ones who don't want to have their own podcast or don't want to be in the limelight quite as much. So that was totally fine, and I had a really nice email conversation with Helen instead and found out all sorts of things about her and her inspiration and her yarns. One of the things I found out is why Viking Yarns is called Viking Yarns, and that has to do with her location. Legend has it that back in the day the Vikings landed on Appledore Beach, and perhaps some of their lineage and blood still remains in Appledore to this day, and it certainly does in the form of yarn, because one of Viking yarns is called Viking Blood, and it's a beautiful rich colourway, and it's a colourway that I found when I was looking for a kind of murderous red. I was probably quite ragey, I suppose, but I was looking for a deep kind of bloody red, and I saw the name of this yarn and I thought, perfect, that is exactly what I want. So I went ahead and I ordered myself a skein. This is what I have left, so this is going into my scrap drawer. The colours don't show terribly well on this, but it's a kind of almost a pinky red, and it's got these wonderful splashes of royal blue, a kind of navy blue that's inside it. And so I used this one in a shawl pattern that was called Mini Madness, and I've unfortunately forgotten the name of the person who created that, but I went on a bit of a Mini Madness binge and made loads of them, and I made one that was full of murderous reds and crimsons and pinks, and I used the Viking Blood yarn for the middle one of those. I don't know how closely you can see that. It's not as orangey as it's appearing on screen. It's a much more of a kind of fuchsia pink, a rich kind of deep one. So the Viking Blood was the first yarn of Helen's that I played around with, and then I started following her on Instagram and began to discover more and more of her colourways. And if there's something I can say about Helen's yarns, is that they are very calming in their influence. I don't know whether it's because she has a perfect balance of colours, or the colourways she chooses are just naturally quite serene, but they seem to have this kind of balanced, natural quality about them that I don't really know how to describe. It's perhaps because a lot of her colourways are inspired by things that she sees around her, the things she sees in everyday life. And if that's the case, then she has a wonderful eye for picking up the beauty and the kind of the miraculousness of colours in everyday life. This shawl, unsurprisingly, a Linus shawl. Great present, great present. Do I keep saying that? Just one skein, one present, really quick knit up. But back to talking about the colourways. This is a colourway that Helen has, which is called Wheat into Gold. And it's a really beautiful tonal piece. There are dark golds and light yellows, and it really does remind me of a field of wheat, especially at the moment. I'm spending a lot of time in my car on the road at the moment, and there are these fields full of wheat, and they're just stunning, and it just reminds me totally of that. And that was why I decided to put in this contrasting dark grey, because I always seem to see these fields of wheat when there are big black clouds hanging above them, and I think the contrast of that is beautiful, and I wanted a little bit of that around my neck. So a really rich tonal kind of semi-tonal solid, would we call that? Possibly. But that was a real joy to knit. Very, very soft. And also a great present. I don't know if I mentioned that. I think I did. Really great present. That's going in my present stash. So you've seen a variegated kind of speckled colourway, the Viking Blood. This Wheat into Gold that is a gorgeous tonal one as well. That's not to say that everything Helen does is in neutrals or kind of natural colours. She has a wonderful colourway. She has a wonderful colourway called Petrol, which is a grey base with these wonderful kind of flecks of bright pinks and deep greens and flashes of yellow. And for me, they are just like oil on a pavement. You know, when you've parked your car or you pass somewhere where a car has been parked and there's a puddle and you have these beautiful oily colourways on the dark grey pavement. That is exactly what that says to me. And they were a real joy to knit. Both this and the Wheat into Gold are 100% merino superwash. Super soft, but yeah, really, really delicate. Her knits are those kind of knits that when you're knitting them, you get really into the yarn and you see details in it that are probably going to go unnoticed by unknit-worthy recipients, but that just make knitting with it an absolute treat because you get deeper and deeper into it as you go. They're incredibly rich and well thought out. And I love these petrol socks, and I love the kind of the subtle neons. As I said, I'm not a super bright kind of person, but I love how these are incorporated into grey because I love grey. And my doesn't Helen do a wonderful grey? She's done two kind of greys. The first one I picked up is this one called Hollow Moon. Now this is a merino nylon, an MCN base, so merino cashmere nylon, and it's variegated with these kind of creams and then pale greys and then flecks of slightly darker grey and then a real dark grey there. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it does remind me of the face of the moon. They're all quite kind of evocative, Helen's yarns, and her choice of names for them really kind of heighten that effect as well. So this was the first lovely grey that I got from Helen, the Hollow Moon colourway. And the second is a kind of darker brother and sister to that, which is the Graphite colourway. Now this is 70% superwash merino, 20% silk and 10% cashmere. So it's really, really luxurious. And they kind of make quite good partners. And so while I was thinking of that, I have had a so faded sweater in my sights for quite some time. So with some help from some other dyed indie dyer friends, I think I have found my so faded sweater. So the Hollow Moon is going to come first. Then we have the Spook from Stranded Dye Works, who I spoke about last month. Then I think I'm going to put in the Graphite from Viking Yarns. And then I have this colourway, which is called Smoky, just to finish it off. So a very kind of dark charcoaly colourway. So that's going to be my So Faded sweater at some stage in the future. My queue in Ravelry is just getting longer and longer and longer. But I'm particularly excited to get these to knit up, just because they are such lovely tonal greys, and I'm really looking forward to knitting with them. So I shall keep you abreast of progress as that goes on. Now, so Helen has she has speckles like in the petrol socks. She has these beautiful tonals like in the wheat into gold, and she also has a really nice kind of line in variegated yarns. This colourway is called Raspberry Truffle. It's got dark charcoals, it's got vibrant raspberry pinks, a little bit of yellowy kind of soft vanilla-y, and it does remind me of biting into a chocolate raspberry truffle, which is delightful. Just a quick word on socks, how I make my socks. I do top-down socks with a heel flap, and I use the Perfect Plain sock by Rian Doothwaite, which I kind of is my go-to one. I'm thinking about branching out and doing a different kind of sock, especially for these kind of variegated and self-striping socks. Interrupting it for a heel flap often does kind of funny things. I quite like the effect on these, but I know for other kind of more strictly striped socks that doing them either toe down or with an afterthought heel, toe up or cuff down with an afterthought heel, kind of lets the yarn shine a bit more. So that's a note for the future. So I've only managed to do one of these. The other is still on the needles, but hopefully they'll be going into my box of socks sometime soon. So at the moment, Helen is only doing sock weight yarns. She has a 100% superwash merino. She also has that merino cashmere and nylon blend. And she does a great sparkle sock, which unsurprisingly I haven't got any of because I'm not that sparkly. But she also mentioned that there are some exciting things to come with silk as well. So keep an eye out on her shop. At the moment, Helen is what she describes as a kitchen warrior. So she is squeezing in the dyeing between another part-time job, which keeps her fairly busy, and it also keeps her shop colorways and bases fairly limited. But I think she has her eyes set on bigger, brighter things when she gets more time, in that miraculous nirvana that is out there somewhere, which is called having more time, that we're all hoping for. But I really hope Helen does. I know that one of her goals is to be able to attend a fibre show or a knitting festival sometime soon, so do keep your eyes peeled for her there. It would be excellent to kind of see her out and about on the circuit and to meet her in the flesh, so fingers crossed for that. Helen's yarns are really very inspiring, and when I asked her who some of her favourite designers were, she mentioned Vera Valimaki and Joji Locatelli, and I can see why the tonal kind of subtleties of her yarns really lend themselves to those two designers. So I can imagine at some stage getting a pavement sweater or a boxy out of some of her yarns. They make really good wearable items, I think. They don't demand centre stage, but they're really quite kind of portable and easy to wear pieces. So I can see how those two things, Viking Yarns and those two designers, match up. But she did also mention that she has a soft spot for Stephen West with some of her brighter colourways, which she does have. She does have bright colourways. One is called Broken Rainbow, which is a kind of a black splashed in with very bright rainbow, which is just wonderful to use. So I hope that's given you a bit of a flavour of Viking Yarns. Helen has been sweet enough to give us a 15% voucher code, so you can head to her Etsy shop. I highly recommend following her on Instagram as well. I'll put details of her Instagram feed and her Etsy shop on the screen so you can go ahead and follow her. And if you use the code that is on the screen, you will get 15% off until the end of August. So do make the most of it. She's very speedy at turning around orders. And also, I did ask if she did custom orders, and she says if you are interested in getting a custom shipment of an existing colourway, so if you want to make a sweater's worth, or you just want more socks in the same colourway, then do ask her. She does do custom orders for existing colourways. There are some things I'm working on outside of the independent dyers I'm reviewing. I'm really into sweaters at the moment, really getting into my jumpers. And I cast one on way back in January and managed to get the back done, and it has just been languishing. I'm knitting this Amy Herzog pattern called Courant. Courant? Are we being French? Either courant or current. Either way. But one of the things that's great about Amy Herzog's designs is that they're really made to be fitted, which is nice. They've got really lovely waist decreases. So this is the back I've managed to do. It's in this kind of rather, don't want to say turgid brown, but it is quite a turgid brown. And I think the reason it's been languishing is because maybe a turgid brown isn't the best colourway. But I'm forging on just because I want more handmade sweaters. I want more handmade jumpers because my pavement sweater is getting way too much use. Pretty much every photo I appear in, I'm wearing my pavement sweater. So I've got to get something different. The yarn I'm using for this is a Twillies of Stanford in Mist. It's super soft. It's super fine alpaca, 35%, 20% wool and 45% Draylon. Hang on while I have a cough. But it is absolutely really soft, and I can't wait to get wrapped up in that, even if I will look like an oversized teddy bear. But I'm going to see if I can make it work. So that's one of the things. I'm trying to get that whip finished up at the same time as getting ready for September's focus, the showcase for the September pod blog. So busy doing all of those things. I hope you can join again in September. And of course, if you know anybody who would like to be showcased, or you would like to be showcased yourself, then please do get in touch. And as ever, thank you very much for joining and putting up with the slightly hoarse voice this week. In September, we're going to take a look at a slightly different independent yarn doer, let's say. So check back in September for that. I hope you can forgive the fact I've got quite a croaky voice. I have been rather under the weather, And just looking back at some of the footage, I think that probably shows in the enormous bags under my eyes as well. So hopefully I won't be as croaky or as raspy in the next one. But on the mend now, and thanks to plenty of knitting time. You can find me on Instagram as Yarn Ambassador or on Ravelry as Chellis. You can also write to me at yarnambassadorpodcast@gmail.com. So thanks again, and thank you to Helen, and see you next month. Bye bye.